world wars, removal of national boundaries, colonization, decolonization, political philosophies like communism, capitalism, socialism, etc., their forms and effect on the society. Q critically analyzed the significance of the Vienna Congress in changing the course of the European history. 250 words. Vienna Congress. The Congress of Vienna was an international congress aiming to restore peace and to restructure Europe, which was in a mess after almost 2 centuries of war and the monarchic attempts of Napoleon to conquer Europe. It was a quest for a balance of powers, so that future wars and revolutions could be prevented. Decisions were made by the 4 superpowers Russia, Austria, and Great Britain. Due to diplomatic skill, France, too, was allowed to take part in decision-making. The main goals of the Congress of Vienna were to establish the terms of long-lasting peace between European powers after the French Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars, and to finalize European boundaries in order to create a balance between each of the major countries of Europe. Significance of the Vienna Congress in changing the course of European history. French returned territories gained by Napoleon from 1795-1810. France was deprived of all territory conquered by Napoleon. The French monarchy was restored under the rule of Louis XVI. Russia extended its powers and received sovereignty over Poland and Finland. Russia lost its claims over Poland, but extended its territory towards the Westphalia and the Rhine province. Saxony was punished for its alliance with France and lost some territory to Prussia. Austria, too, did extend its territory. Venetia, for example, was handed over to the Habsburg family. However, due to the increase of power of other European powers, the Austrian monarchy rather lost in significance. Austria was given back most of the territory it had lost and was also given land in Germany and Italy, Lombardy and Venice. The Austrian Netherlands were unified with the Kingdom of Netherlands under the House of Orange. Bavaria and Hanover gained territories. Norway and Sweden were joined. Switzerland was declared neutral. Britain gained control over several strategic colonies and became the first superpower of the world. Spain was restored under Ferdinand, and the balance of power was sort of successful. For 40 years Europe was peaceful. However, this stability was achieved at the price of personal freedom of the population of the major European powers. However, Congress has often been criticized for causing the subsequent suppression of the emerging national and liberal movements, and it has been seen as a reactionary movement for the benefit of traditional monarchs. Fall of the communism in Eastern Europe led to surfacing of a new range of problems in the world. Discuss. 250 words. Background. The collapse of communism in the late 1980s marked the end of Soviet rule over the countries of Eastern and Central Europe. The change was sudden and swift in most of these countries, resulting in greater social and personal freedoms, as well as economic upheaval and political chaos. The disintegration of the Soviet Union resulted from a number of different factors. 3 important ones are nationalism among Soviet satellite states, democratic opposition movements, and economic crisis. Along with these elements, a role of Mikhail Gorbachev should not be discounted. New set of problems arise. Ethnic issues resurfaced. The end of Soviet domination also unleashed panic of ethnic and national grievances, leading to sometimes brutal confrontations over centuries-old borders and political supremacy. There arose sectional conflicts in many parts of Russia, especially in Chechnya. One of the major challenges faced by Europe in the wake of the collapse of communism has been that posed by ethnic nationalism, the problem that erupted violently in the Balkans in the 1990s. Freed from Soviet control, such divisions resurfaced promptly. Yugoslavia separated into multiple countries along ethnic lines, as did Czechoslovakia, which split into Slovakia and the Czech Republic. Lesser squabbles threatened to erupt along the Hungarian-Romanian border in Transylvania, as well as on portions of the German-Poland border. Political, ethnic and religious divisions also manifested themselves in the creation of new political parties, several of which aimed to redress ages-old grievances. For some countries, such as Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan, oil and natural gas exports have created prosperity but have also enabled corruption. Countries such as Lithuania and Latvia underwent dramatic transformations by quickly turning to the West, adopting Western ideals and political leanings, while other countries, such as Armenia and Tajikistan, have struggled to flourish in the post-Soviet era, and many citizens remain poverty-stricken while the states and their politics remain in flux. U.S. became the dominant power. Transition difficulties. One of the great challenges was the difficulty of transition from communism to democracy. East European states so long had depended upon Soviet Union for central planning and guidance. The process of transition to democratic government posed great problems for the people of Eastern Europe as well as Soviet Union. Economic issues. The inflation was at the highest in Russia as well as in East European nations. There was rapid reduction in production as well as unemployment. All former countries of Soviet Union had faced economic depression. The Eastern European states found it difficult to adjust with the capitalism. The problem of economic reconstruction of the Eastern Europe, which in itself brought several problems like right-wing backlash against aid from the West, selling of nuclear weapons by Russia, etc. Immigration and the defense of human rights are two problems that now confront the United States, as well as the United Europe. The threat of rogue or unstable or dangerous nations acquiring nuclear, chemical or biological weapons grew significantly despite issues. Collapse of communism spurred attempts at political democracy in all but Romania. Poland, Hungary and the former Czechoslovakia in particular enjoyed a period of political openness, freedom of speech and the press, and the formation of many new political parties and interest groups. Topic: Salient features of Indian society. Effects of globalization on Indian society. A normative shift has taken place in the idea of reservation from how it was envisaged by the Constitution as a tool of social justice. Critically comment. 250 words. Background. Reservation policy or the policies of affirmative action or preferential treatment and compensatory justice are one of the many tools adopted to promote positive equality. What was the idea envisaged by the Constitution regarding the idea of reservation as a tool of social justice? The policy of reservation was a measure for the emancipation of the socially and economically backward people of the nation known as scheduled castes, SC, scheduled tribes, Saint, and the hugely debated other backward classes, OBC. It was conceived and advocated not as merely the tool for allocation of few seats or percentage-based quota, which it was in fact, but mission to evolve a strong and powerful nation based on social harmony wherein every citizen of the nation, irrespective of caste, creed, religion, sex, etc., could have an open, impartial and abundant opportunity. The policy is often explained as positive or protective or compensatory discrimination in favor of the backward classes for the purpose of mitigating inequalities and ensuring justice. Compensatory justice aims at providing counterbalancing benefits to those individuals who have been wrongfully injured/deprived in the past so as to bring them up to the level of wealth and welfare which they would have had if they had not been disadvantaged. The three concepts, that of equality, individual and group, are central to the debate on reservations. What has been the shift regarding the idea of reservation over the years, unlike in the late 60s and again in the late 80s? When the reservation discourse originated in the deep sense of unfairness of the social system, today's reservation discourse draws its strength from unfair development policies. Reservation is increasingly seen as a remedy for the adverse effects of ill-thought-out development policies. In both Gujarat and Maharashtra, in spite of their economies being relatively better, three things have been worrying the people, i.e., acute agrarian distress, stagnation in employment growth and distortions in the development trajectory. Hence even forward and dominant castes have been demanding reservation. It is seen as against upper castes. Reservation is also called discrimination in reverse or reverse discrimination. This terminology connotes that reservation, which works as a protection to the reserved categories, i.e. scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and other backward classes, acts as reverse discrimination against the upper castes. Reservation topic is being misused. For political parties, reservation discourse is convenient because it allows them to keep subscribing to the consensus over economic policies, avoiding a critical approach to the root causes of the problem. Now economic backwardness is considered as demand for reservation. For the agitators, reservation appears as a more immediate remedy compared to long-term structural repair and reform. Social backwardness was the prime indicator earlier, educational backwardness the secondary indicator, and economic disadvantage the third and probably only a concomitant indicator. But arguments in favor of privileging economic backwardness continued to be aired forcefully. The formula propounded by former leaders to defuse the controversy included 10% quota for the poor from other communities, and this idea has received much traction of late. Increasingly, claims for OBC reservation have come to stand on the logic of contemporary economic backwardness more than backwardness shaped by traditional social injustice. Both in the Paddle and Maratha agitations, the central anxiety has been by current economic tribulations. Thus, the claim for reservation on grounds of economic backwardness is seen as justifiable. Political strength. The more effective justification for claiming reservation is the logic of political strength. In Karnataka, the Lidaya demand for reservation was declined by commissions appointed to determine backwardness. The decision ultimately took place considering the clout the community enjoys in the state. The post-Mandal demands for reservations often reverberate with the politics of the dominant castes in various states. This development has altered the context and texture of the reservation debate. The new logic of reservation revolves around the question of how much to whom, questions of the share of concerned communities in the population, extent of reservation and division of reserved seats among different communities occupy the central space in debates. On the extent of reservation, the growing political consensus appears to be shaping that the 50% limit set by the court need not be upheld in practice. The reason is that reservation is a right of groups to a proportional share, rather than an enabling provision to make way for equal opportunity. To evaluate whether gender bias is all-pervasive in Indian societies. Discuss how we are dealing with correcting these biases. 250 words. Background. Most people think about gender bias in terms of economics, labor force participation, and the thing GDP or interpersonal dynamics, men being insensitive to women. But gender bias is a set of interlocking dynamics with lots of well-meaning people implementing and protecting systems, practices, structures, and institutions that fundamentally exclude, disenfranchise, and marginalize women. Gender bias is all-pervasive to Indian societies. 1. Political parties in India tend not to follow provisions in their constitutions reserving seats for women in different committees. Additionally, since women are not integrated in any local political process initially, and, unlike men, are not part of the relevant social and power networks, women leaders are prone to inefficiencies. The Economic Survey for 2017-18 tabled in Parliament said factors such as domestic responsibilities, prevailing cultural attitudes regarding roles of women in society, and lack of support from family were among main reasons that prevented them from entering politics. India ranks 28th from the bottom in terms of representation of women in parliament. The 16th Lok Sabha has only 64 women among its 542 members, the mere 11.8%, which is even less than Afghanistan and Pakistan. There has been concern over a role of women as proxies for male family members. Quotas like 33% of seats are reserved for women at local level are neither meritocratic nor useful because women in politics are simply representatives of the men who would have been in politics. Training issues. The issue of training has become an increasing concern with preparing women for a role of leadership. It was found in Tamil Nadu that women lack the education and training to understand procedures in panchayats. 2. Socio-cultural issues. Role of entrenched gender norms in our society. The discrimination against the girl child begins from the birth itself. Boys are preferred over girls, hence female infanticide is a common practice in India. Caste discrimination. Dalit women and their children are routinely denied medical care as other castes refuse to treat them. Violence. Women are more likely to experience physical and sexual violence at home, in their immediate neighborhoods, and at the workplace. Health issues. Low age at marriage and high fertility has a direct impact on the health outcomes. Women record low body mass index (BMI), higher prevalence of anemia, and low access to maternal health care facilities. Mainly husbands and in-laws take decisions regarding their health. Familial influence can be a barrier or a support system for female elected officials in terms of connections. Domestic responsibilities. Prevailing cultural attitudes regarding roles of women in society and lack of support from family were among main reasons that prevented them from entering politics. Education. Literacy among Indian women is 53.7%, which is much lower than literacy among men reported at 75.3%. Illiteracy limits the ability of women to understand the political system and issues. Problems with exploitation, such as women being left off of voters' lists, have been reported as illiteracy limits the ability of women to ensure their political rights are exercised despite the reservation of seats at the local levels. There are no similar quotas in relation to elected seats at the national and state level. 3. Technological bias. Another obstacle faced by women is the lack of access to information and communication technologies (ICT), which also been used to attack women for economic. Lack of confidence and finance were the other major deterrent factors that prevented women from entering politics. Because of the current structure of labor laws, disincentivizing formal labor markets and hiring, India has an extremely asymmetric and disproportionately informal labor market. So women are also more likely to be trapped at the lowest levels in the informal labor market. Lacking the social networks that enable upward mobility in the labor market, they are often relegated to the lowest paying, hard physical labor under exploitative conditions by middlemen. The informal sector leaves women in a poor position to access the economic growth resulting from market liberalization. Ballot women record higher work participation rate than that of their non-ballot counterparts, but high wage gap between SC and non-SC/street women. Concentration of ballot women workers in agricultural sector and elementary occupations show that most of the ballot women are deprived of high salaried positions, so they stay poor. Women earn for their families, but they have no control over their earnings. The rising incomes of men, which raises family income and makes it easier for women to quit working, and the lack of quality jobs for women, lack of a safe and secure external and internal environment in India's employment sector, etc. How is India dealing with these biases? Huge progress has been made. Gender 1.0 was set off by Rajaram Mohan Roy. Gender 2.0 came from Gandhiji's recognition that the freedom movement walked on one leg. Gender 3.0 was votes for everybody in 1947. Some women in Switzerland only got voting in 1971. Gender 4.0 started after 2014 with schemes like the Vidit Ujjwala, Maternity Leave Bill, and many other initiatives. Gender 5.0 will include working on men and issues such as triple talaq, fixing our employment exchanges, more learning outcomes in schools, more formal enterprises, more apprentices, more cities, more manufacturing and macroeconomic stability. Government initiatives for ensuring women empowerment. It was launched to generate awareness and also improve the efficiency of welfare services meant for girl child. This scheme is to prevent gender-biased sex-selective elimination and ensure the education, survival, and protection of the girl child. It also aims to celebrate the girl child. Mahila Hai to support women and also make in India through online marketing platform. This bilingual online portal is a blessing. The Mahila Hai is an initiative for meeting needs of women entrepreneurs. It provides a unique and direct marketing platform and also leverages technology for supporting women entrepreneurs, SHGs, and NGOs. One-stop center scheme. The aim of launching this scheme is to provide support and assistance to women who are affected by violence in public and private spaces. Through this scheme, the women who are facing physical, sexual, emotional, psychological, and economic abuse, irrespective of age, class, caste, education status, marital status, race, and culture, will be supported. The safety measures recommended by the Ministry of Women and Child Development concerning safety of women commuters availing of cab services have been included in the new taxi policy guidelines. The taxis should be mandatorily fitted with GPS panic devices. For the safety of women and child passengers, the central locking system in the taxis should not be allowed. National Nutrition Mission (POSHAN) National Nutrition Mission was launched as an expansion of the Vidit program. The main objectives of this scheme are to obtain proper nutritional status among children from 0 to 6 years, adolescent girls, pregnant women and lactating mothers in a timely manner, reduce stunting, undernutrition, and anemia among young children, women, and adolescent girls, and lowering low birth weight by at least 2% per annum. Trafficking of Persons Bill 2018 seeks to provide a strong legal framework and dedicated institutions at various levels. Women helpline numbers providing emergency and non-emergency assistance to women in distress. How to deal with the biases. creatively design policies to counteract the market failures caused by cultural norms. For example, in designing employment exchanges, India needs to address lower registration by women by having information campaigns on returns to employment for women. In designing apprentice schemes, India needs to require factories to invest in hostel and child care that will get women to take up apprenticeships. In reducing labor laws, India needs to push harder to remove discriminatory acts like the Factories Act 1948 that prevent women working at night. Political participation. Gender stereotypes which perceive women as weak representatives should be changed through awareness and education. Efforts need to be taken to enhance the participation of women in governance in large numbers. Women Panchayat members have to be trained to analyze and understand their roles and responsibilities given in the 73rd Amendment Act. Women's leadership and communication skills need to be enhanced by increasing female literacy, especially in rural areas. They should be empowered in order to break socio-cultural barriers and improve their status in the society. Empowerment of Indian women can occur through bridging gaps in education, renegotiating gender roles, the gender division of labor, and addressing biased attitudes. Introduction of quotas. Women Reservation Bill needs to be passed and is certainly a positive step in the right direction. ICT can be used to raise awareness of women's political activism and to organize campaigns for advocacy, conducting training such as developing media skills, designing campaigns, and building knowledge of key national and local policy issues, along with long-term mentoring, has assisted in building women's confidence to take on leadership roles beginning at grassroots levels. Providing skill building and leadership training for women civil society members, women's organizations, and female journalists. Promote community and sport programs that foster leadership skills for girls and women and promote gender equality. Support women's leadership in the workplace through greater inclusion in executive positions and on corporate boards. Support women's coalitions to work more effectively within and with political parties and representative bodies. Promoting coalition building and networking among women representatives and decision makers to strengthen women's influence up and down the decision-making chain. Supporting gender-sensitive parliaments through induction training for MPs on gender issues, mainstreaming gender impact reviews into parliamentary committee work, gender analysis of proposed laws, the introduction of tools for gender-sensitive budgets, support for cross-party women's caucuses, and women's mentoring programs. Incorporate men, especially fathers and sons, in training focused on supporting and promoting girls and women as leaders and decision makers. Encourage political parties to remove all barriers that discriminate against the participation of women. Develop their capacity to analyze issues from a gender perspective and develop gender-sensitive election manifestos. Bridging implementation gaps. Government or community-based bodies must be set up to monitor the programs devised for the welfare of the society. Women need group and gender-specific policies and programs to address the issue of multiple deprivations. Women require comprehensive policies on health, especially on the maternal and child health, and make credit available by pooling the women to form self-help groups. The example of Kudumbashri model of Kerala can be emulated. Women's safety. Police vigils should be made mandatory at places. The presence of police should be increased at places like schools, colleges, malls, and other places where crowd gathers. Authorities should ensure that all the public places are lit properly. The authorities should ensure that women travel safely, whether it's the trains, buses, or the metro rails. The authorities should ensure that cameras are installed at all key places, which will help the manual management of law and order a great deal. The autos, which still are a good and cheap source to commute, don't have GPS system installed. Authorities should ensure this. The victims should be able to file birth online, but despite recommendations, births are still filed in conventional ways where the victim is made to wait for hours. Integrating social and cultural transformation with an economic alternative is critical. Huge investments will be needed in upskilling and educating women, and government needs to create an abundance of new jobs within the formal sector and lowering barriers to job creation. Increased availability of stable wage jobs for women is critical to preventing their socio-economic exploitation. Topic: Role of women and women's organization. Social empowerment. Elderly women are the worst sufferers of nuclearization of Indian families. Examine 250 words. Background: in 2009, there were 88 million elderly people in India. By 2050, This figure is expected to soar over 320 million. Between 2000 and 2050, the overall population of the country is anticipated to grow by 60%, whereas population of people of age 60 years and above would shoot by 360%. Situation of elderly women in India. By 2050, women over 60 years would exceed the number of elderly men by 18.4 million, which would result in a unique characteristic of feminization of the elderly population in India as is being experienced in many provinces of China. Changing family structure. Many are forced to either live in a house uncared for or leave their homes with nowhere to go to. Although the degree of isolation may vary, with urbanization and nuclear families on the rise, elderly women living in metropolitan cities are more likely to feel socially alienated than their rural counterparts. The traditional norms and values of Indian society also laid stress on showing respect and providing care for the elderly. However, with the emerging prevalence of nuclear family setups in recent years, the elderly are likely to be exposed to emotional, physical and financial insecurity in the years to come.